Hey everyone! Welcome back to Hammad Plays Chess. If you enjoyed my previous video on the top 20 chess principles, you're in for a treat today. That one was a hit. But what about the endgame? It's a whole different ballgame. So here we are with part 2. Top 25 endgame principles that will take your game to the next level. These tips are specifically for the late game, where things get tight and strategic. Ready? Let's dive right in. Principle 1. Avoid stalemates when you're ahead. You're cruising toward victory, miles ahead in material, and then stalemate. You can't let that happen. Picture this. White's queen moves in to corner black's king, but oops, now the king has no legal moves. White doesn't win, it's a draw. Remember, if you're ahead, check every move. Stalemates are sneaky game stealers. Principle 2. Activate your king. Late game? King is no longer just a target. He's a powerful piece. Your chances of getting checkmated drop because fewer pieces remain. Now's the time to mobilize him. Your king can march across the board, scoop up pawns, and block critical spaces. Principle 3. Centralize your king. Let's build on that. You don't want your king in some lonely corner. Bring him to the center. From the center, your king has maximum flexibility, ready to move wherever needed. It's like having your knight in the middle of the board. Total dominance. Principle 4. Push past pawns. A passed pawn is a pawn without any opposing pawns blocking its path to promotion. If you've got one, push it. For example, white has a pawn on a2, and it's got a clear path to becoming a queen. All black's pieces are too far to stop it. Simple rule, passed pawns must march forward. Principle 5. Create passed pawns. If you don't have any. What if you don't have a passed pawn? Make one. Let's say white plays a4, and black responds. Suddenly, white's creating space to push that pawn further, eventually creating a passed pawn that black can't stop. Create your opportunities. Principle 6. Support passed pawns. Here's where things get a little more tactical. Don't just push past pawns blindly. Without support, they'll be easy targets. A better strategy is to put your rook behind the pawn and bring your king over to guard it. Now you're fortified and that pawn's on a winning journey. Principle 7. Boxing with your queen. When you've got a king and queen versus just a king, you want to slowly shrink your opponent's available space. Picture it like making a box around their king, cutting off more squares each time. Gradually force the opponent to the edge and deliver that final checkmate blow. Principle 8. Same concept with rooks. In a king and rook versus king endgame, you use a similar strategy. Box your opponent's king into the corner, bring your king up, and use your rook to close in for checkmate. Rooks work differently than queens, but the overall method is quite similar. Principle 9. V formation with two bishops. Got two bishops against a lone king? Form a V shape to restrict the enemy king's movement. Make the V smaller and smaller until the opponent is trapped. Then drive them into a corner and checkmate. It's a powerful method if you master it. Principle 10. Bishop and knight endgame. This one's a bit trickier. To win with a bishop and knight, you need to force the enemy king into a corner that matches the color of your bishop. Sounds tough, as it is. Beginners don't encounter this often, but when you do, you need to know how to maneuver your pieces precisely. Principle 11. Two knights can't checkmate alone. Here's a quirk of chess. Two knights on their own can't force checkmate unless your opponent cooperates and runs to a corner. So unless your opponent is inexperienced or makes a mistake, you're most likely looking at a draw with two knights. Principle 12. Edge pawns are tough to stop. Pawns on the edge of the board are tricky to deal with, especially for knights. Even if black has an extra knight, white can push their pawn to the edge, and there's not much the knight can do to prevent promotion. The lesson? Edge pawns are deceptively strong. Principle 13. Two connected pawns on the 6th rank. Beat a rook. If you've got two connected pawns on the 6th rank, they can overwhelm a rook. The pawns will either promote or force the rook to make sacrifices. No matter what your opponent does, the odds of stopping both pawns are slim. Advanced pawns are more valuable. Pawns that are further up the board are more dangerous than pawns that haven't moved. In a famous position, white's pawns are farther advanced, and despite black's seeming advantage, white wins by sacrificing pawns and racing to promotion first. Advance your pawns strategically, and the game's yours. Principle 15. Master the opposition in king and pawn endgames. When two kings face each other, opposition is critical. By gaining opposition, you force your opponent's king to step aside, giving your king room to move forward. In pawn endgames, opposition is a make-or-break concept, so mastering it will serve you well. There you have it. Powerful set of principles to dominate the endgame. If any of these concepts felt a little tricky, don't worry. I've got more in-depth videos on each one, so be sure to check the links in the description for detailed breakdown. Now go out there, apply these principles, and let me know how they work for you in the comment. Thanks for watching Hammad Plays Chess, and I'll see you in the next one.